thank you so much for joining us for today's Stay Healthy at Home webinar. Today we are talking about giving and getting consent, and we are joined by Katherine McLaughlin. Katherine is the founder, CEO, and lead trainer for Elevatus Training. As a national expert on sexuality and IDD, she trains professionals and parents as well as individuals to become sexual self-advocates and peer sexuality educators. She is the author of Sexuality Education for People with Developmental Disabilities curriculum. She has developed 2 online courses, Developmental Disability and Sexuality 101 for professionals, and Talking to Your Kids, Developmental Disabilities and Sexuality for parents, and a 3-day certificate training, Becoming a Sexuality Educator and Trainer. She has spent her 25-plus-year career committed to elevating the status of all people, which is why the name of her growing company is Elevatus Training. And you can contact Katherine at elevatustraining.com, and I will put that in the chat for you. And I just want to take a quick second to thank you so much, Katherine, for being here. We're so very excited for this training.
Right.
If anyone has any other questions or needs any sort of technical assistance, Frankie and I will be here behind the scenes, and you can use the chat box or the Q&A box to let us know if you need any sort of support or if you have questions about the training. And again, thank you so much, Katherine, for being here.
Sure, thanks. I'm glad to be here. So my name is Katherine McLaughlin, like Erin said, and I've been doing this work for over 25 years. And one thing that was mentioned in the introduction is that I'm really committed and hoping that I sort of have this dream that in every state there'll be sexuality educators that are people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And so I do work with a lot of self-advocates and helping them be, get comfortable talking about these topics as well. So today we're going to talk about giving and getting consent. And I don't know if I'm older than you all or not, I can't see you, but when I was younger, consent, this idea of consenting to something was, people would say, well, they didn't say no, so that means yes. And really, consent is about giving a yes, not that you didn't say no. So we're going to talk about the different, the topic of, how do you define consent? We're going to also talk about how to give and get consent. And 2 parts of that is saying no and accepting a no. And then also how to manage your feelings when you don't get consent. And if we have some time, we'll talk about some different styles of communication as well. So just a few things, and this is, I always have group agreements or ground rules when I do workshops. And here are just a few group agreements for us. So the first thing is to respect differences of opinion, which is wonderful for all of us, that there's going to be lots of different opinions about things, and whatever you think is okay. And also, don't yuck my yum. You may have heard that before, to not make fun or say negative things about different kinds of relationships and things, because it might be something that somebody's yum or something that they really like. We're going to keep things confidential unless you tell us that you are being abused or you're abusing someone else. Then we would have to report and do something about that. And also, all questions are important. There's no such thing as a stupid question. So if you're thinking, I don't know if I should ask this, please ask. And like Erin said, you can put it in the Q&A or in the chat. And I'll be talking for a while, and then I'll check in to see if there's any questions, and then talk a little bit more and check in around questions. And I may even pose some questions to you all, and you can put your answers in the chat. So let's just do a kind of a quick thumbs up, thumbs down. And you can actually in the chat you can click on the little face there, and you can find a thumb up or a thumb down. And I'm just curious, I'm gonna mention something like a thing or a place, and give me a thumbs up if you really like what I'm talking about, and give me a thumbs down if you don't like what I'm talking about. And we'll see if this works. Chocolate cake. Do you feel like thumbs up or thumbs down? Okay, got one thumb up. Okay. Anybody else? Chocolate cake? Oops. All right. I see a few more thumbs up floating. I don't know what that's about, but all right. So let's do a couple more. Eating spinach. Is that a thumb up, like you really like it, or a thumb down, you don't like it? Okay, another up. Great. Someone else put their hand up. Great. All right. Good, good. I'll do two more and another thumbs up. Okay. How about dancing? Looking like we got some thumbs up on that one. No thumbs down yet. I gotta think of something that somebody might not like. Let's see. How about liver? Eating liver? You know, liver and onions. Have you ever had that? Okay, I got a thumbs down. Okay, I think that, yeah. All right, great. And then the last thing, oh, another thumbs down. Okay, so I found one. That's great. Now, we'll do one more. Going to the beach and it's like 80 degrees. A thumb up or a thumbs down? I see a heart floating, some thumbs up. Great. I agree. I want to be there right now. Great. Okay. Thank you all. So let's just kind of get us started and really talking about how, you get to decide what you like and don't like and what you want to do and don't want to do too. And that's part of consent as well. But we're going to, like I said, we're going to be talking about consent. And if you have been sexually assaulted or raped or other sexually non-consenting activity where you didn't agree to something, or maybe a family member or a friend has gone through that, when we talk about this, sometimes it can bring up sad, angry, negative feelings. And if you need to take a break and take care of yourself. And if you need to talk to someone, find that person that you really trust and talk to them after the webinar too. All right, so let's talk about what is consent. I'd love it if, what is consent? If people can put that in the chat, and then we'll talk in more detail about what it is. But what is consent? What does that mean? Anyone have any ideas? Permission, okay, yeah. Yeah, permission, yep. So we ask somebody something, or someone asks us something and we agree to it. We give permission, we agree, we're making this agreement together. But it's a little more complicated than that too. And these are examples of really the opposite of consent. So this is making somebody say yes. So even though we want a yes, it's these make people push, pressure, threaten, all kinds of things people so that they say yes. So it's not really consent because they were made to say yes. I use the example that I could hold a gun to your head and make you say yes, but that wouldn't be consent because I made you say it. And so also in the chat, an understanding of the risks, consequences, and benefits of engaging in an activity. Okay, so understanding some of the positives and negatives of this certain activity. So really understanding all of it is part of consent. Great. So off of that, you see here, using lies, like saying, I love you when you don't really mean it to get someone to consent, is not true consent. And it's kind of like not really knowing the risks and consequences because you're not really given the right information. So if someone says, I love you, but they don't really, then they're manipulating you. So that's not true consent. Or threats. If someone says, if you don't have sex with me, I'll go find someone else who will. That's threatening you. So it's trying to manipulate you and get you to say yes. Pressure, come on, please, just this time, it'll be okay. Come on, come on, come on. Like constant pressure where people just finally give in and say yes. That's an example of what isn't consent. Blackmail. If you don't have sex with me, I'll tell everyone you're a real jerk, or I'll tell everyone that you called in sick to work that time when you weren't sick. So having some information about you and threatening to tell others about it if you don't do this. Intimidation. You're such a baby. When are you going to grow up? And making you feel bad and giving in. Or bribes. You know, I lent you $10, so now you owe me, you need to kiss me for 10 minutes. So it's saying, I gave you something, now you owe me, which is a bribe. It's bribing you. If someone gives you something, they need to give it to you just as is, not with anything attached to it. And then force, which I talked about a little bit earlier, forcing the person to have sex in particular. It's called rape and is illegal. And, you know, somebody lying to someone will probably not get arrested, but it's really not very kind because you're not giving the full information about the situation to the person. So you're manipulating, making them say yes. All right, so how I describe consent is a freely chosen yes. So it's not, they didn't say no, and it's not just a yes, it's a freely chosen yes. So that means freely chosen means without all those things I just mentioned on the last slide. So what freely chosen means is I ask you a question, do you want to do this? And you say yes or no, and I accept your answer. And that's freely chosen. I don't try to get you to change your mind and say yes. So freely chosen, I ask, you answer, I respect and accept your answer. So when I look at different scenarios, what we want to do is ask two questions. Did the person say yes? And was it freely chosen? So asking those two questions help us look at scenarios and decide if they're consent or not. And if you are someone who's supporting somebody, you can use all of these different scenarios and definitions as well in talking about what consent is. All right, so let's try it out. So I'm going to read some examples, and you'll have to decide whether it's consent or not, and you can put your answer in the chat. So here we go. Consent story 1. You're going out for pizza with a friend. When it comes time to order, you ask your friend, do you want pepperoni on that? Your friend says, sure, sounds good. So we want to ask those two questions. Did the person say yes? And they didn't actually say yes, but they said sure, which implies yes to me. And then was it freely chosen? So what do you think? Do you think it's consent? Yeah, because it was freely chosen. Yes, exactly. There wasn't any pressure. They didn't hit him over the head with some pepperoni. Not really, because the choices were limited. Okay, so so you're kind of saying like, saying something like, what would you like on your pizza would be even easier. Yeah, gotcha. Because then you could really be in charge of it. Yep. So that's great. So consent for the most part, but then someone said, not really, like it might have been better to just say, what do you like on your pizza? So here's another one. Your friend asks you if they can borrow $50. You say, no, sorry, I don't have money to lend it to you. Your friend says, come on, I lend you money sometimes. If you don't, I won't ever lend you money again. What do you think about that one? Did they say yes? Was it freely chosen? No, because they threatened them. Exactly. Yeah, so we didn't even get to the yes part, whether they said yes or not, but they might have. So yeah, that's not consent. Great. Okay, so now we'll get more into the sexual part of consent, which is the same as pizza and borrowing money, right? There's nothing different, but sometimes we look at it differently for some reason, but it's not. It's still consent. So one person asks the other person if they want to have sexual intercourse or sex, when whatever that means to you. The other person says yes. They have sex and enjoy it. So is that consent? And Megan wrote, depends on the age. So really great point. Sometimes people say yes, but they're not old enough to say yes. So depending on the state, I don't know what New Jersey is. I'm in New Hampshire, and the age of consent, meaning when you turn a certain age, you are able to say yes to sex, is 16. So I'm not sure what it is in New Jersey, but right. So that's another question we might want to ask ourselves. Can this person say yes? Right. So if it was a young child or something like that, then even though they said yes, doesn't mean it's consent. So that actually throws in another question. Was it freely? Can the person say yes? Did they say yes? And was it freely chosen? Great. All right. So how about one partner says, let's have sex. The other one says, no, I want to talk first. The first partner says, if you don't, I'll tell everyone you did anyway. The other partner agrees, but feels kind of yucky about it. Is that consent? What do you all think? No, yeah. How come? Why do you think it's not? They said yes. No, you should never feel yucky for sexual interactions. Yeah. Yeah, and even if it was, even sometimes when people consent, they might feel yucky just for whatever reason. They feel ashamed or something like that. But yeah, it's supposed to feel good, and you should feel happy. And sometimes I'll say to people, think about when you go somewhere that you really want to go, like to the beach, like we were talking about, or to this movie you've been dying to see. You know, what does that feel like? You're like excited about it, right? So it's like, yippee, I can't wait to go on the roller coaster. But that's what we want sexual relationships, sexual acts to feel like, is you're excited about them. You're not doing it because you should, or you're supposed to, or you were threatened, but you actually want to. All right, we've got a few more. One person sees a person on the street and thinks that they're very sexy. They go up to them and touch their breast. Is that consent? Yeah, no way. They didn't even ask. They just touched a person's body, which is never okay. And going up to someone that they don't know and even asking that wouldn't be okay either, because they don't know you. And we don't touch people's sexual parts unless we've talked to them and we know who they are and we've decided this together. They were not granted permission. That's right. They just did it. So that would be sexual assault. Okay. You're with a sweetheart and you're kissing. You want more touch. So you go to move your hand to their genitals, their sexual parts. They stop your hand and push it away. Is this consent? No, right. There was no yes. And really pushing hands away is saying no. And some people don't speak, and that would be enough. They're pushing the hand away. They don't seem like they're yippee and excited about it, right? They're pushing your hand. They're saying no with their body language. Okay. One partner starts kissing their partner kisses back and starts taking off their clothes. Is this consent? What do you think about that one? That one sometimes is a little tricky. Maybe. Yeah. So yeah, it depends on the context. Sure. So those of you that think yes, why do you think that's consent? And it might depend on the context or what's going on too. So I've heard partner kisses back. Yes, I've heard two different interpretations of this one. They're kissing back, which is saying, yes, I like this kissing. But taking off their clothes, maybe the person just wanted to kiss too. So, or maybe they're in a relationship and this is how they're sexual acts go, right? They start kissing, then they take out the clothes. So really, we don't really know enough about it. But yes, kissing back is saying yes, but are you saying yes to everything? So that's a little bit tricky. All right, I think I've got two more. Jim says, let's go to the movies. Amanda says, I don't really feel like it. Jim says, come on, please, 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 I really want to. Amanda says, I don't really feel like it. Jim says, please, come on, I really want to go now. And Amanda says, yes, and she feels okay about it. Is that consent? Yeah? How come? Why do you think it's consent? Right, stating the consequences does not equal a threat. A person who has lent another money in the past is not threatening the other by discontinuing such lending if the other does not reciprocate. So that's a little different one. A threat constitutes stating, okay, yep, she could choose to not go to the theater. Yep. I don't think so because she didn't want to. So this is another tricky one. You know, maybe when someone says, oh, come on, we do things that we don't really want to do, but we do them. But wouldn't it be great if she could just say, you know, I said no, stop bothering me. Yeah. So that's another example, one of those kind of tricky ones. But it's good for us to say no too, and we'll get to that. So in this one, you could say, I don't really feel like it. She could say, no, I don't want to. She could always say no, and stop pressuring me. One person says to the other, I love you and I want to have sex with you, but the person doesn't really love the other person. They just want to have sex. The other person says, okay. What do you think of that one? Did they say yes, and was it freely chosen? What do you think? Anybody have an opinion? Not really. Yeah, I think this is the one that people struggle with. Like, it's not really fair. I would say it's not freely chosen, so it's not consent. But some people feel like it's okay to lie to people. So I think it's kind of, yeah, fraud. Yeah. So you're not being completely honest, and then you're agreeing to something that isn't what you think you're agreeing to. So it's, yeah, like you're saying, fraud. Yeah. So I would say not consent. So we're looking for 2 yeses, right? And even that other part that Megan mentioned, is the person able to say yes, is another question. And I think an important thing too is to remember that it's your body and you get to decide what's right for you. It's your life and you get to decide what's right for you. And sometimes people don't necessarily feel like it's their life and they get to decide what's right for them. So if you don't feel that way, you might want to think about why. Why don't I feel like my life is my own and I get to decide what's right for me? And try to work on that, because it's important that we believe that. Because if I teach you about consent, then you're not going to use any of the skills if you don't feel like your life is your own, your body is your own, and you get to decide what's right for you. All right, so that's one thing. What is consent? So we talked about that. Then the other thing is, you know, saying yes feels great. You feel happy. But sometimes people say yes when they don't really want to, and they have a hard time saying no. So 2 other skills is how do you be comfortable saying no and speaking up, and also accepting a no when someone gives you a no, because that can be difficult when we feel hurt or angry. So we're going to practice a few sessions, a few scenarios. So I'm going to, I can't see you, but I'd love for you to practice this. And then we can talk about how it went. But actually, I want to just check in. I've been chatting away here. Is there, are there any questions at this point before we jump into the learning to say no? Okay, looks good. All right, so we're going to practice. And even though I can't see you, I'd love for you to practice. All right, so I'm going to say something to you and you're going to say no to me. And you can sit up straight if you can and look at me or near me in my direction, and be confident in your decision. And you don't have to say why, you just can say no. Okay? So these are just make believe, and I'm just asking you a question and you're just going to practice saying no. And then we'll talk about how was it to say no. So can you loan me $5? You can write no in the chat if you want, or just say it. Or put your hand up like no. So how does it feel to say no? Can you loan me your bike? No. Will you have sex with my brother? No. May I touch you? It'll be our little secret. No. All right, so I know I couldn't hear you or see you. I wish I could, but that's something to practice if you're not good at saying no. So let's talk about it. How does it feel when you say no to someone? What does that feel like? You can put it in the chat if you'd like, and just say, like, what does it feel like to say no? Anybody? Are you good at saying no, or is it hard to say no? What does it feel like? And if it's hard, why? Why is it hard? I always feel like I have to add an explanation. Right, yeah, that you can't just say no, you have to explain, because, yeah, I mean, I wonder about that. Why do we have to add an explanation? And maybe it's a gentler no in some ways. That it does seem like when we have to say no to someone we really care about, it's a lot harder. And maybe the explanation feels a little bit nicer or something. Yeah. What makes it hard to say no to people? Like just plain no, no explanation, just no. Anybody? Maybe you're all experts at saying no. Feels rude a little. Yeah, right? The feeling that you're not going to be liked by the other person. Yeah, that it might impact your relationship with the person, that you're mean or rude. Yeah, right. And those are not true, but we feel that way. And we feel like we have to take care of the other person's feelings, sometimes more than our own. I have had to set boundaries both personally and professionally, so I do not struggle to say no. That's great. That is wonderful. How do you think you got so good at it? Practice. Yes, so true. Yes, yes. Yeah, and setting boundaries is, similar to consent, saying, no, I won't do this, or you can come over to my house only if you call, or, setting up rules and your limits can be really hard. But like Blaine said, practice. Saying no is hard if an expectation exists to saying yes. Right, yeah. And that might be, I say to my kid, hey, can you da-da-da-da-da? And they say no. And I'm like, what? How dare you say no to me or something? Yeah, there's like this expectation that I'm not really asking, I'm expecting something. You need to ask people. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And what do you do if you keep saying no and the person keeps asking you? Like, say someone asked you out on a date and you said, I don't, nope. What could you do if they keep asking you? I was taught growing up that you always say yes. Don't speak up. Yes. Yeah. Right. I agree. I learned those things as well. And, maybe women get taught that more, supposed to be pleasing and kind. And, don't want to be rude. But I think males also struggle with that too, or any person struggles with saying no, but some people are better than others. So if someone keeps asking, you said no, and they keep bugging you with the same thing over and over, what should you do? Any ideas about that? Like, what do you do when someone won't stop asking? Sometimes we have to get a little more forceful. No, I said no, stop asking me. And we can also, repeat yourself. Yeah, we can also get help from others if we feel like someone is not listening to our no's and disrespecting our no's. Okay, so the other thing is, how do we take no for an answer? So we were just talking about it's hard for us to say no. Stop responding is another thing you can do. If someone asks you a question, just stop responding. So we were talking about us saying no to others, setting that boundary, saying, no, I don't want this. But the other thing is, what about if you ask someone and they give you a no? Have you ever asked for something and gotten a no? What did you ask for and how did it feel? You have to respect that, as hard as it is. Yes, exactly. But sometimes when people get a no, they feel like that person is mean and rude, and I'm going to punch them now, or I'm going to throw something at them, or I'm going to yell at them because they feel hurt. But we have to take care of our feelings. The other person doesn't have to take care of our feelings. So if someone says no to us and we feel hurt or sad or angry, we've got to take care of ourselves. It's not their job to take care of us, because that's then not respecting a no. So one thing that you can do, but it really kind of depends on the situation. If you get a no, sometimes it's all right to ask for a second choice, but not the same question again. So if someone says, will you go to the movies with me? And the other person says no, you could say, do you want to have coffee in the morning? It's a different request. And if they say no, then we need to let it go and move on. It wouldn't be okay to ask the same question over and over again because they already said no to that. So that's one thing you can do sometimes if it feels right, to try something else, because maybe they just don't like going to the movies. And you're going to try a different thing that maybe they love having coffee. So, but other than that, we really want to stop and move on. And we can't keep asking people the same thing over and over again, because that starts to become harassment, and really bothers people, and they can get upset and sometimes feel scared. So that is an option. And then if you get a no after you ask one or two things, you have to accept it gracefully. And what does that mean, to accept it gracefully? Someone says no to you. And somebody wrote before, you have to respect it. So yeah, how do you respect it? How do you show that you respect it without judging the other and not taking it personal? Yeah, yes, say okay and move on. Exactly. Yep, I understand. Okay. And then we can take care of our own feelings, right? So we can think about, what do we do when we feel sad or hurt? And if we don't take it personally, then that's great. We might say, okay, that's fine. It doesn't bother us at all. That's great. But if it does bother us, how do we take care of ourselves? Okay. So these are some examples of what you could add, how do you accept gracefully? So this thing about accepting a no, you can, I can't have you volunteer, but you could just think about, like, if you ask someone to borrow $20 and they said no, another option might be, can I borrow $5? And if they say no, then we want to let it go. So there's usually another option if that feels right to you. But maybe you need 20 and 5 isn't going to work anyway. Or I'm your boss and you say to me, I'd like a $2 raise. And I say no. The other thing you could say is, well, what about a $1 raise? Maybe you get a yes, maybe you get a no. But then if it's 2 no's, you want to move on. You like me and want to ask me out. You say, will you go to the movies with me? And this is kind of the second, like we were just talking about. So I might say, we go to the movie, or you might say, we want to go to the movies. I say no. And then you say, do you want to go to the amusement park or something? I think it's very confusing for folks with IDD as society pushes the idea of the chase, the notion that people should say no the first few times. Oh, wow. To just maintain respectability. I read several books written for folks with IDD that teaches them to follow this 3 strikes effort. So what is that? I don't know what 3 strikes effort means. Can you explain that? Does that mean, okay, thank you. If someone says no after 3 times, then you stop persisting. Yeah. I mean, I think that's tricky because if you're asking the same question 3 times, that starts to be harassing. So I think of like, someone might say, do you need help? And you say, no, thanks. And they go, are you sure? Like, yes, that's enough. Asking one more time would be really, yeah, I think it is super problematic. Ask for what you want. They say no, try one little, something a little different, and then let it go if you get 2 no's. Okay, so it's okay to be angry and disappointed, to be told no. But like I said, it's not okay to hit the person, yell at them, threaten them because they said no. Remember, you can feel however you want to feel or feel your feelings, but you cannot act however you want to act. So what can you do if you get angry? Someone says no to you once or twice and you have to move on and you feel really hurt and angry. What can you do to take care of yourself? Anybody have any ideas? Like, what do you do when you're angry or sad or someone said no to you? What do you do to take care of yourself? Any thoughts about that? I'm sure people have some ideas. Sometimes people say they go for a walk, sometimes leave, but not sure if that's good. No, I think that's fine. You're taking care of yourself, right? To leave, accepting that emotion and manage it. Yeah. So how do you manage it? Like, okay, I feel angry and hurt. So what do you do to manage that? Leaving is, I think, absolutely fine option. Go for a walk. Yes. Yep. Do something fun, go play with my dog, things that make you feel good and try to manage your feeling. And, sometimes self-talk too in your mind, saying things like, we just weren't a good match. That's why they didn't want to go out with me. There's plenty of people out there for me to meet, rather than I'm terrible and nobody likes me, and, to think positive things. It depends on the issue. Step out from the situation that made you feel that way. Yeah, sort of get away from it. Distract yourself. Do things that make you feel good. Great. So yeah, saying no and accepting a no can both be tricky for us. And some people might be better at other things, at one than the other, and others are better at one than the other. So both of those skills are important when we're talking about consent. All right, so I'm going to show you a video, and it's called Consent is Classic, and it's got some great music in it. And it's actually through, okay, I'm angry with mom. Yeah, so when we're angry with our mom, how do we take care of ourselves? Because sometimes when we're really angry, talking to the person, it might not be the best time because we're really angry. But so how can we get to a point where we can talk to the person we're upset with without sort of being too angry? Or I mean, it kind of depends on the situation too, but yeah, we can be angry with our family as well. Yeah, and how do we manage that? And it's okay to be angry, but it's not okay to hurt someone or yell at someone or throw something at someone, right? So it's okay to feel angry. It's a normal, healthy emotion. So I'm going to show you this, and it goes through the decades, and it shows two people asking, one person asking the other a question. They're asking for consent, and then the other person responds. And sometimes they say yes, and sometimes they say no. And what you'll see is how they accept a no. So pay attention to that, and we'll say, well, what did we see? All right, I just want to make sure. Yeah, I did set the music, but I want to just be sure, just in case. Yeah, it's all set. Okay, here we go.
Will you dance with me?
I'd love to.
Can I take off your shirt? Yes, you may.
May I walk you home?
That's very kind of you, but I like to go by myself.
Okay. Would you like to see a motion picture with me?
Yes, I could even go tonight.
So how far do you want to go?
I'd like to keep my clothes on.
Hey, do you want to spend the night? Well, that's okay. You don't really seem into it. I think we should wait. Can I kiss you?
I'd like that.
Do you want to keep going?
Not now.
It's okay. I just want you to be comfortable.
Want to make out?
Sorry, I'm too tired. Maybe another time.
Sounds good.
Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, let me get out of this slide here. So what did you see? Well, I guess the first question I have is, did you see people saying yes? And did it feel like it was freely chosen? So I know there were a couple of yeses. So I don't know if you remember them, but one, she asked about going to a motion picture, a movie. And he said, yes, I can even go tonight. So he seemed excited, yippee, wants to do this. And then there was another that said yes at the end. She was like, yes. That's a freely chosen yes. They feel excited about it. They're happy about what they're going to do. So did you see people accepting a no? What did they say when someone said no to them? How did they respond, if you remember? Anybody remember? Yep, that's okay. We'll go at another time. Yeah, exactly. Yes. One person could see someone wasn't into it and then responded by saying, that's okay, you don't seem into it. Right. So they didn't seem like yippee. They seemed kind of like, sort of hesitant. And they say, you don't really seem into it. Let's wait. Yeah. So paying attention to the person's feelings, accepting those feelings. Yeah. And someone even said, that's very kind of you, but I'd rather go by myself. So that was also very nice, a nice way to say no too, not just like no. So that was another example of saying no, accepting no. So I like that video because it shows the different parts that we've been talking about. Getting a freely chosen yes, persons accepting a no tended to explain the naysayers' answers. What do you mean, Kevin? I'm not sure what you're saying, that they said, that's okay, you don't seem into it, that kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes it was accepting the no and kind of answering for them in a way, like you don't seem into it, or yeah. So that can happen as well. But I think that's also paying attention to the person, and they didn't say yes as well. So, all right, we got about 15 more minutes. So let me move along. Sorry about that. That happens every time. So another piece of consent and speaking up, somebody mentioned speaking up as well today. It's very much the same. Like, how do we speak up for what we want, which might mean stating what we want or saying yes or saying no. But sometimes others aren't as good at speaking up, you know, and people were saying they weren't very good at saying no. So maybe they're not good at speaking up. I don't know. But so there's different styles of communication, and the most effective is speaking up. And you, even though you speak up, doesn't mean you get everything you want, right? But you're saying what you want. And that seems to be the most effective and the kind that people want you to use. And I'll talk about the different types. And I put these definitions in the handouts too. So you'll have some handouts. But speaking up is, you know, like I had you say no, sitting up, you know, looking in the direction of the person, stating what you think and what you feel. And so it's saying what you want and need. Shy is not saying anything, or you know, covering your face or slouching, or you know, not saying what you need and want. Doesn't mean you're going to get it. Well, you're definitely not going to get it if you don't say it at all. But and then bossy is kind of like being mean and yelling and kind of threatening style. So let's look at some more scenarios and then talk about, what do we think it's shy or bossy or speaking up, this style here. So you order French fries with your hamburger. The server brings you onion rings instead. You tell the server that you asked for French fries, not onion rings. What communication style is this? Is it shy? Is it bossy? Is it speaking up? Yeah, speaking up. Yeah, 3 people said that. Yeah, exactly. You just said, I ordered this and I got this. Could you know? So you said what the situation was, and you spoke up for yourself and your needs, which you wanted French fries and not onion rings. Yeah, so that's speaking up. A shy person might say, oh, and depends on the tone of voice. Yes, true. If someone said, in this situation, if someone said, I asked for French fries and not onion rings, that would be bossy, right? So it does depend on the tone of voice too. Yeah, or pointing or something like that. All right, so a friend forgets to meet you for dinner. This is the 3rd time in 2 weeks. You tell him that you're upset, you yell at him and tell him you don't want to be his friend anymore, and you hang up the phone. Is that being shy, bossy, or speaking up? What do you think? Speaking up? Yeah. It could be, you know, it could also be bossy too. I mean, you are saying, I'm upset with you. Yeah. I don't want to be your friend anymore. But you could also be saying, you know, I'm really upset. This is the 3rd time. I don't think we can be friends anymore, right? So again, it's back to that tone of voice, right? And we don't know his story necessarily, sure. So that one's a little bit tricky because both bossy and speaking up are saying what you need and want, but one might be a little rougher than the other, right? Like slamming down the phone or yelling at someone versus just saying, I don't think we can be friends because you keep hurting me and not meeting me. That's speaking up. All right. You feel like you're being scheduled for too many weekend shifts at your job, but instead of complaining to your coworkers, you talk to your manager. Is that shy, bossy, speaking up? Yeah, speaking up. That's right. You're saying, you know, I keep getting scheduled. Is there a way I could get some weekends off? Yeah, you're just saying what you'd like and need. And maybe they'll say no, but they won't say yes if we don't ask. And when people are really aggressive and bossy, people don't want to say yes, you know. All right, John's been listening to music at work and Mary finds it distracting. Mary says, it's hard for me to work with music on. Can you wear your headset? Is that shy, bossy, or speaking up? Yeah, right. Just saying what you need and asking for someone to fix the problem. Great. All right, let me see. I got a couple more here, but I'm gonna just buzz through them. Let's do this one. Jessica hates her electric razor. It doesn't work well and hurts. She asks her guardian to get her a disposable razor. He gives her no reason, but tells her no. Jessica says nothing back and accepts his answer. Is that shy? Is that bossy? Is that speaking up? Shy. Yeah, it's saying what you want, but as soon as you get that no, you just back down. So that can be kind of shy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so there's those kinds of things. And then I guess this is similar when we were talking earlier about those of you that said you were good at saying no. I would imagine you're probably good at speaking up too, right? And you said practice was what helped you. Do you have any advice, those of you that are really good at speaking up, do you have any advice for other people who are shy or bossy, you know, to help them get better at speaking up? Any tips for them? Okay, yeah, bossy tends to not build bridges. Yeah, it tends to burn them, right? Right, exactly. They're hurtful. People don't like being talked to that way. Go to law school. That's your advice to getting better at speaking up. There you go. Shy doesn't get you the support you may need. Exactly. Yeah. So saying if you really want support, it's okay to speak up. And if we're bossy, you're going to burn bridges and practice or go to a school and learn how to be assertive. Yeah. Okay, great. Let's do a couple more. Well, I can't get you. We can't practice these because I can't hear you. But anyway, it was just a couple of the scenarios that you could use if you were with someone and practice speaking up and being okay with speaking up. Sometimes it's easier said than done. Yes, absolutely. I'm really good at saying to other people how they should speak up, right? It's so much easier when it's not you too. Yeah. So there's a couple role plays here, but I thought I would show you a couple of videos for our last few minutes here, or at least one. Now this video is for little kids, and I know you're not little kids, but I think it's kind of interesting to think about bodily autonomy. Let's see, here we go. So can you see that okay? I'm thinking you can see it, right? Yes? Okay, great, thank you. Like I said, this is for kids, but some of the messages are really good for all of us to remember. Like we get to decide who touches our body. So even though it's for kids, it's got really good messages. A challenge is to separate the response from the emotions associated with the response. Yeah, so that's a bit of advice, right? So with speaking up, you feel nervous and then try to separate that. I think is what you're saying, Kevin. All right, so if you know any kids, it's a great one. but also we'll watch almost to the end, but it's about bodily autonomy.
Consent for kids. This is you. Okay, it doesn't look exactly like you, but let's say it's you. This is your body, and you get to decide what you do with your body. No one else is entitled to tell you what to do with your body. Not your friends, not strangers, not adults you know. No one is entitled to decide what you do with your body, except you. That's called bodily autonomy, by the way. And that's what consent is all about. Everyone is different. Some people love to hug, and some people hate hugs. And each person gets to decide what they're comfortable with. Can a hug-loving person just start hugging someone at random? Nope. They need consent. How do people know if they have consent? They ask. Would you like a hug?
Yes, I would. Can I hold your hand?
I'd rather not.
Okay.
If a person doesn't say yes,
Can I hug you?
then they haven't given their consent. It's really pretty simple. Ask for consent, listen to the answer. By the way, if a person bribes someone or threatens someone to say yes, that's not consent. Sometimes adults will try to tell a kid what to do with their body.
Go kiss Aunt Doris goodbye.
But the kid still gets to decide. No thanks, that makes me uncomfortable. I'll just wave goodbye. Some things kids can't consent to.
All right, I'm going to stop there because it goes into what kids can and can't do. But kind of like the person brought up, it depends on the age. So if we're talking about sexual things, kids can't consent to sexual things. And so even if they say yes, their yes is not, it's actually, they can't say yes. So even if they say yes, they really can't. So, but that bodily autonomy is an important one for us all to have and to really believe. We've got 2 more minutes. I don't know if people have questions or any thoughts about, do you feel like you have bodily autonomy that you can speak up and say, I don't want to hug you, or like this kid did? Or do you feel like it's hard for you to speak up on? I don't know what that means, Simon, on. No, okay, got it. Okay, so yeah, so you don't feel like you're allowed to say no to hugs, or you're not good at it, or yeah, that would be something to really work on then, starting just with that. Like, I want to wear these clothes, and you know, getting more control in your life for things that make you happy and feel right to you too. So working on bodily autonomy is a really good one to think about too. So what's setting boundaries and speaking up will get easier with practice. Yes, yes, yes. Lane is giving you some help. Just really try to speak up and set boundaries, and it gets easier and easier. So what's one thing you all want to remember about giving and getting consent? Anybody have anything they want to remember? We've got 1 more minute. So think back over the hour, and what's something you want to remember? It's contextual, so it depends on the situation, whether it's consent or not. Yep, sometimes, yep. What else do you want to remember? Do what's best for you, right? Yeah. And that can be really hard for us. Freely given consent is not coerced. Yes, right. And it's okay to say no. It's okay to say yes, if that's what you want and what's best for you. Yeah. And practice. It sounds like that's the tip that was given to us as well, is to practice. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here and for your adding things to the chat and being so present. And good luck with speaking up and saying yes and no and all that bodily autonomy. Thanks, everybody.